Hello and welcome to our very first episode of Lights, Camera, Clicks, produced by Edit House Productions. We're very excited to be doing this. My name is Matt. Here with me is Ed Smith, owner and founder of Edit House Productions. How are you doing today?
Good to be here. And welcome, everybody.
Yes, we're very excited to do this. This is years coming, I would say. We've talked about a podcast show for a long time, so it's great to be able to finally get this into motion.
We've talked about podcasts since before there were podcasts, so that's kind of interesting.
Well, we are here today, so to learn a little bit about Edit House Productions and kind of how it started. Can you tell us, from the very beginning of time, before Edit House was founded, let's go back to your history and learn a little bit about you.
Well, I date back to before color television, so I don't know if you want to go back quite that far.
First childhood memories.
First childhood memories. Ditch bank fire when I was 4, but that's a whole other story. Yeah, I grew up in Southern California in Culver City. My dad worked for MGM. Actually, I had 3 dads that worked for MGM, which is a little strange. So I was always on sets and going to work with dad, and I think as a kid you don't really, it doesn't really sink in what your family does, where they work, and so I guess I just really wasn't that interested in it. And so I went through high school. I didn't really know what I was going to do. In fact, when we lived in Southern California, I thought I wanted to be a marine biologist.
Marine biologist. I haven't heard that. I've heard a trash truck driver.
Trash truck driver. When we lived in Culver City, I was a little kid, the trash truck would come by. And that was back when the trash men they'd ride on the back of the trash truck, and I always thought that looked like it would be a lot of fun. Oh, yeah. I think it still looks like it would be fun, but due to liability concerns, they don't do that anymore.
That's too bad.
So
growing up, you went to high school,
so we moved from Los Angeles to where my mom and dad had graduated from high school at Cortland, Kansas, and I finished high school there. Didn't do very well in high school because of I think the transition from California to a small town. So my high school counselor actually said that I probably wasn't going to make it. I wasn't college material, and so I should learn how to weld. But I was pretty poor welder, so I thought I really should get my stuff together and study. And so actually, in high school, I lettered in speech.
That's a thing.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know that was a thing. So,
I didn't know that either.
So I got a small scholarship, $250 scholarship to go to Fort Hays State University in Hays, Kansas.
What year was that?
That was in 1980.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah.
So I went to school at Fort Hays for my degree. I started in the theater department, building sets and running.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Building sets and working in the theater department. I did lighting, theater lighting, and set construction and sound for the theater department. And then part of that degree program was centered around television. And so when I got to the television part of the curriculum, I just really fell in love with it. And I guess since I had grown up in that industry, I gravitated toward it. And so went through those courses, became the television station manager of the station at Fort Hays, and I guess it kind of moved me into thinking about management and just kind of gearing my education toward that area. Yeah. Graduated from Fort Hays with a bachelor's degree in 1984, and then stayed for my master's degree.
And that's when you met Mrs. Smith.
That's when I met Mrs. Smith, who, interestingly enough, was an instructor at Fort Hays, and she taught a class called Ethics in Broadcasting, which is, interesting. But no, she made me work for it. I had to work for the grades. So
Fifth grades,
I did, yeah. So I met Kim 40 years ago. So
Wow.
which is quite a long time. So we were an item. Yeah, when I was a grad student. So I graduated in 1985, and I worked, prior to that, I had worked at KAYS TV as a master control operator and directed television news and started making television commercials there. And then I moved on to KSNC TV, was a production manager there, had a small staff, and directed television news there. And then moved on to Wichita, Kansas at KSNW TV, and I directed television news there. I directed the early morning news, or I directed newscasts in Kansas for 11 years. So I directed the early morning news at KSNW for quite some time, and I made television commercials.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, I gravitated away from directing news and worked then primarily in commercial production and long format production. So some of our clients were Cessna Aircraft Corporation, Rent-A-Center, Pizza Hut Incorporated, Coleman, the Coke Industries.
I'm sure a lot of people know this, but Ed and I kind of have a special connection. You want to talk about that? Because somewhere in that timeline.
So back in there, Kim and I did get married, so we are married, and we had a couple special kids.
Yeah.
Matt and Ryan, and we did. We had a couple of good kids, and who actually joined us, right in at Edit House.
Yeah.
And when I formed Edit House in the year 2000, Matt was 9. And
where were you coming from, and how do we get from Kansas to New Mexico?
I think we drove.
Did we? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. So when I was in the Kansas market, corporate television changed. There were a lot of things happening in television at the time, and there were a couple of times where you'd go to lunch and you'd come back and you didn't have any management staff; they were all gone.
Oh.
They'd be fired, and so you wondered, well, what's going to happen to me?
Mm-hmm.
And so that corporate structure and some of the things that were going on in the Wichita market were getting pretty undesirable. We shifted in Wichita from the standpoint of really working on good quality productions to working for the sales staff, and that's not a bad thing, but it was more about quantity than it was about quality. And there was one incident where we were working on television commercials that had to be, I think there were 60 television commercials that had to be produced in a day, and so I worked for about 30 hours straight producing these television commercials. And the next day, a supervisor came in and wanted to know why I was still working on these television commercials.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of checked out at that point. It really became kind of unbearable. And so I decided that I was going to make a change. And I actually, what's my?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a little shout out. If you guys have any kind of questions for Ed during this podcast, we will be answering your questions live here at the end of the show. So if you have anything to ask, feel free.
Yeah, for sure. Ask me anything.
Yeah,
I'll tell you anything too. So, I actually got out of television for a while. I tested for my New Mexico real estate license and became a real estate agent in New Mexico for a while, and that didn't quite work out. Seems I'm a better television producer than I was a real estate agent. So I got back into television and worked at KRQE TV. In the promotions department. So I sat in the newsroom, and we made episodics for the promotion of the news product. One of the more interesting things that I had the opportunity to work on was helicopter wars when KRQE got their first helicopter. So we got to make the promos to promote the helicopter.
Yeah.
And,
Did you get to fly in the helicopter?
Got to fly in the helicopter. One of the rules that it was Bob Martin who was our pilot, but one of the rules is when you flew with Bob, you had to run the FLIR. So Bob taught me how to run the helicopter camera called the FLIR, and excuse me. So that was a lot of fun. Bob was a great guy, great teacher. But eventually, the corporate structure and some of the things that were happening from a corporate standpoint started creeping their way into my life again, and I just decided it was time to look for other opportunities. At KRQE was a one-person producer for 12 salespeople, and I thought, well, if I'm doing this on my own, I might as well do it on my own. And so, in just before Thanksgiving in 1999, I tendered my resignation, much to the I think dismay of management.
Yeah.
But
how was that? I mean, that must have been incredibly nerve-wracking. Not really
I think it was.
what-
I think it was maybe more nerve-wracking for Kim than it was for me. I'm not an entrepreneur, but I knew that I could do it. There was no doubt in my mind that I could form a company and I could make it work, because at KSNW we started that also kind of with a skeleton crew of people and developed a great production company, and I knew that I could do it again. I really didn't have any doubt.
So the idea from the beginning was to create Edit House Productions. Did you have the name in mind, and were you thinking, I'm going to open this and I'm just going to be producing commercials and documentaries, or was there at that time in 1999 ideas to expand and grow?
I don't know how to exactly answer that. I knew from my experience at KSNW, I knew the benchmarks that I needed to attain to hire more people. I knew the benchmarks I needed to attain to purchase new equipment.
Yeah.
But I don't think I had some master plan to have things evolve in 24 years to where they are now.
Yeah.
I simply wanted to produce good material, and I think that the reputation of producing really good television propelled me a long way.
What were some of the first equipment purchases that you made for the company? Cameras, editing systems, things like that. What did you buy?
Well, it was at the beginning of being able to digitize footage that we would shoot on a Betacam. So we shot on a Betacam, and so the first equipment I bought was the UVW 1800, which is a big Betacam deck, and that deck you could feed video and audio out through a digitizing box, if you will, and that flowed into a Mac G4 computer, which was top of the line at the time, and pretty fast.
And that was running the first version of Final Cut. Correct?
Final Cut Pro 1.05, I think that was the was the first. Yeah, so started making television commercials, and then we would output to beta, and then those beta tapes would be delivered to the television stations, and that was kind of our workflow at the time. I rented a television camera until at one point the company that I rented from pulled the camera kind of out from under me before a shoot, and I thought, well, I should just own a camera.
Yeah,
and then I don't have to worry about it.
Absolutely.
So a lot of those purchases like that were really predicated on control of my destiny.
Yeah.
When you don't own your own equipment, you have to rely on somebody else. You have to rely on somebody else's engineering skills. You have to rely on somebody delivering the camera or the teleprompter. Similar incident with a teleprompter. So I thought, well, I'll just go buy my own teleprompter.
Yeah.
Which we still have today. It's 24 years old.
So we're in the early 2000s of Edit House.
Early 2000s, yeah.
You were making commercials, documentaries. What were some of the notable clients that you had the pleasure of working with and
Well,
producing for?
out of business now was Academy Furniture in Corrales. Did a lot of work with them. There were a number of clients, and I don't remember a lot of them. Capistrano Casket Company was one of our
Really?
clients as well. Yeah, so I made commercials for caskets.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, they're dead to me now. But,
Oh.
so anyway, shoot.
So fast forward a little bit. I think 2004, 2000.
Well,
early 2005?
by 2002, we were working with a company called the United States Personal Chef Association, and Phil Ellison. I don't know if you're watching now, but Phil worked for that company as well, and Phil had also worked for KRQE in the promotions department. But anyway, they offered me office space if I would put together some promotional videos and work on some of their audio projects. And so
That's a big step.
It was a big
You're
step. So
working from home, and then all of a
Edit-
sudden you have a.
so Edit House left the house, and we went to Northern 528. It's now the building is now owned by the school system here in Rio Rancho. But yeah, so I had a couple of offices there.
I remember those days.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then decided to lease our own space. So we leased 800 square feet on Sunt
Yeah.
Road, which actually became the beauty parlor for a number of family members. It's just kind of weird.
So at what it was at 2000 end of 2004, early 2005. Somebody else was kind of thinking about joining, maybe. How did that come to?
Well, we had
happen?
I think we were on Sunt Road, and for quite some time I had kind of encouraged Kim to quit the corporate lifestyle and come to work, and so I finally did get her convinced. I think was that 2005, Kim? Yeah, got her convinced in 2005 to join the company and start doing the media buys and writing and all those things. Of course, you were still part of the mix and kind of you were being voluntold.
Yeah. I remember
because it was child labor.
Yeah, I remember setting up light stands and tripods.
Well, our very first shoot was New Mexico Bank and Trust. We shot video with Greg Leyendecker, who was the president of the bank at that time.
That was downtown Albuquerque, right?
It was downtown Albuquerque, and I remember thinking, well, I wonder if I should take Matt with me or not. And I really thought, I started Edit House so I could be at home.
Yeah.
With you guys. And I thought, well, screw it. I'm just going to take you on the shoot. And, but you at the time, you understood 3-point lighting and you could set up lights and
I was 9.
You were 9.
Okay.
You were 9.
I remember the shoot. I didn't realize how old I was, I guess.
Yeah. You was a little guy.
Yeah.
Angle biter. But yeah, so it worked out and actually, Greg was quite gracious and I think kind of liked the idea, and so New Mexico Bank and Trust was a client for a while in those early years. So Kim joined in 2005, and you and Ryan were doing some things with us there, and we were on Meadowlark. I think our next place was Meadowlark.
Yeah, we moved from Sunt to Meadowlark.
Sunt to Meadowlark, and we painted the walls red. Remember?
Yes, I remember. The comments on the color choice.
So Mark Conklin, I don't know if you're watching, but Mark was the building owner at the time, and Mark came through and kind of looked at the walls and went, red's kind of an angry color. But we wanted to match the the colors of the logo, and
Yeah.
so that's what we did. So it was a fun place to work. But a few times later, Mark coming through, he said, it's kind of growing on me. So I understand why you painted the walls.
But at that time, we were starting to bring in staff and really expand.
We were. So we hired some editors, and we had a person that it was actually Ryan, I think, that got us started in web development. I kind of went kicking and dragging into that aspect. But
so it's myself, and then Ed and Kim's mom and dad's other son is Ryan. He's no longer with the company. He's moved on to an agency in Las Vegas, but
right. So
he's sorely missed.
he is missed. He
Yeah.
is missed. But we FaceTime with him.
So.
So but anyway, so we hired web dev people and editors and things like that over the years, and people come and go, and at a certain point, then we hired Matt and Ryan to work full time.
Well, I remember I think it was late 2010, because I had graduated high school that year, and we had lost an editor.
Right.
And prior to that, and in the years before, I had started messing around with Final Cut and
right.
and doing some short edits and things like that. And so at that point in 2010, I think I took a really big kind of step, and you had, I think, a big leap in faith for me to come in and kind of come up to this next level of not just simple little edits in Final Cut, but really like broadcast TV,
broadcast quality, and understanding
broadcast
that,
quality commercials. And so that was my first experience, really kind of throwing myself into that environment, working with Final Cut, with the Max. I think we had upgraded at that point from the G4, but I remember. In those days, working with the beta machines and dubbing the tapes, and then station reps, or we'd have to go and deliver these tapes, these beta tapes, with the 30-second, 15-second commercials onto them, and then stations would come and take it back.
And I think during that time period, and we should probably mention that we worked with the city of Rio Rancho for quite some time. We had a contract with the city of Rio Rancho, so I taught public access classes that you participated in, and then we produced a lot of live television too. So we during that period of time, we our company actually helped in the design of City Hall in the control room. We put the control room together. We spec'd out the monitors, all of the aspects of council chambers from an audio video standpoint. Our company directed and then installed, and then after we made the installation, we produced, I don't know how many,
it was all the city
meetings, I think, for a long time.
There was Rio Vision. There was 2 channels that the city had through Cable One at the time. There was Rio Vision 15, which was the government channel, all of the city meetings and things like that. We would produce those, and then Channel 22 was the community access. So producers could come in, take classes from us, through Rio Vision to the city, and then they would be able to produce their own content and see it on air.
Right, and we exited that contract a while back so that we could really focus on what we were doing.
Yeah, it has been
what we were doing here. Yeah, I don't remember when we did that.
Again, if you guys have any questions for Ed or myself, feel free to ask. We will be answering some questions here at the end of the show. Yeah.
So, I guess kind of moving on. It's been over the years really important for us to be ahead of technology, because it's my belief if you're not ahead of technology, then you're behind, and it's difficult to catch up. So one of the things that we had started looking at in about 2004, 2005 at the National Association of Broadcasters convention, they started talking about this concept called convergence. And they were really talking about and I don't think they really knew at the time, but at some point television, broadcast television, and streaming, they knew would come together, and so we started talking about how that was going to happen at that time. Additionally, with the advent of the internet and Google search, we knew that online advertising would become something that we didn't understand at the time the significance. I do remember a sales meeting that where I had a sales management and a bunch of salespeople laugh at me. We were talking about SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Right.
And I was asked what I thought the biggest threat was at the time, and I think this was 1995. I think somewhere in that. And I told the sales staff that I thought the biggest threat to television was the internet. And the internet was, Al Gore had just invented it.
Right.
So it was something that it was just in its infancy. And they kind of laughed. But clearly the internet has overtaken broadcast television. And now broadcast is trying to catch up with.
Absolutely.
And we talked about, when we were at NAB, we talked about ANSI 3.0 and some of the developments that are happening there. But I guess backing up and being part of trying to stay ahead of things, we became the first company to go HD, to have an HD camera.
It was 2006. Six.
Well, we
late 2006, I think.
With 2006, because we thought that we thought that our market would switch over to HD soon after that. So we bought the television camera so we could work on our workflow and compression algorithms and things.
And this was one of the first broadcast HD television cameras. So
it was right. The Sony 355 was one of the first.
It was a big deal.
It was a big deal. I flew to LA, went to this company called Banpro, and looked at the television camera. It was expensive too. This is more than our first house. So, but we were the first with HD, and we were testing with it, testing our workflow and how do we work on framing? What are the shots look like?
We're going from a 4x3 to a 16:9, so it completely changed everything.
It did change everything, but the engineering staff at KOAT found out that we were doing these tests, and they were working on their infrastructure too. So Gary Williams over there at KOAT asked us if we would start sending them files. So we would send them files of our compressions, because the files are quite large, so they have to be compressed.
Yeah.
So everybody has to follow the same standard of compression. Production companies have to compress in a certain way. The broadcast stations can play them back.
This was a huge advancement, because prior to this, we were still
we're still on beta tape.
Yeah, we were still burning or writing, recording beta tape copies of the commercial.
Right. And so we knew we could no longer do that, right? Yeah. Because the beta tapes were 4x3. And so you can't put a 16:9 signal out on a 4x3 system. So we had to figure out a way to do that. And that was why we bought the camera and why we worked on workflow long before the market ever switched over. So we worked on that for quite some time and traded files back and forth with KOAT. There was another station in the market that we did that with as well. But we wanted to see how HD would work. So one of our clients at the time was New Mexico State Police, and we started shooting material with them in HD, and we produced the first television commercial to ever air in New Mexico in HD.
I remember the first commercial was called Border to Border, and we had gone all over the state of New Mexico, shooting different scenes with different officers standing at attention. It turned out beautiful.
It was a very nice commercial, and but we wanted to see it on the air, And we told state police that we'd finished the commercial, and that at that point in time, they didn't have a budget for. They weren't ready to go on the air. So Edit House actually purchased the airtime
Oh, I didn't
on
know that.
KOAT. Yeah, we did. We actually purchased the airtime on KOAT so we could run that spot.
Yeah.
And so we ran the spot. We were the first production company to air a commercial. So state police was the first television commercial to air in HD. In the state in
2006.
seven. I think it was 7.
Yeah, 2007. You're right.
Yeah, it was 2007.
So we're back in the Meadowlark location there at Meadowlark in 528.
Yeah.
We had been there for a couple years. Talk a little bit about Ad House Advertising and how that kind of started.
Well, I had started making media buys back in 2001, 2002. It was actually state police who asked me to start doing media buys back then, because I was giving them advice with the help of Kim. I was giving them advice on how to buy media and how to look at schedules that account execs would produce for them. And so their sergeant at the time, Travis Beatty, would come to me with some of the paperwork, and we would go on, we'd go through it. And so finally he said, I want you to start doing this.
Yeah.
And I and I said, well, there's a company that we work with who does media buys, and so I probably have them do it. And and he said these words to me as a police officer. He said, I didn't ask you to find somebody else. I asked you to do it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, so that's how the media buying started. It was pretty comfortable with it. I had when I was at KRQE in the promotions department. I did work on media buys for our affiliate stations.
Tell me about the decision and kind of how you and Kim at that time came to this idea of opening up another company under Edit House Productions, Ad House Advertising. How did that begin?
Well, we were doing media buys for quite some time under the name of Edit House Productions, and when we would talk to clients about media buys, they would say, well, you're Edit House, like you do commercials, right? So like you do advertising as well, and so like it was hard, I think, for some people to kind of make the jump.
Yeah,
like. You guys do media buys too, so we struggled with that, I think, for several years in kind of that confusion, and at some point, I don't remember the year. Kim would remember the year.
Kim's in our studio audience.
Yeah.
It was 2012.
So in 2012,
I thought
Matt,
2011, but it's 2012.
we came up with the concept of Ad House Advertising, just playing off the name, and so. We launched Ad House Advertising as a division of Edit House Productions that does the media buys, but we do everything now. I mean, we do.
We brought on graphics at some point during that, and kind of put that under the Ad House name.
Right,
There's
graphics,
been a lot of things that have
so really, anything advertising that you can think of, whether it's outdoor or brochures or online display ads or OTT or streaming, all of these things we do here now. Some of which are under the Edit House name, the commercial production, and then the rest really, or the majority now, is under Ad House.
Yeah. Fast forward a couple years, let's get into our next location of where we were and kind of how we were developing as a company.
Right. So. When we were on Meadowlark, we over the years, Kim and I have had some flooding incidents.
There's been a lot of water.
There's been waters. We denied it for a while, and now we accept it that there have been some water issues. And our location on Meadowlark was not going to be left out. And so
that's right, it flooded.
One long weekend on a Friday, there had been some roofers that had re-roofed, and that particular weekend, I think it rained and snowed and sleeted and hailed and like every kind of water you can think of. But unfortunately, the roofers had plugged the scuffer drains. They had tarred over the scuffer drains on the roof. So the roof had parapets, and so if you know about parapets, you know that they stick up above the roof line, and it became like a swimming pool until, well, water likes to find its way wherever whatever water does, likes to find its way down, and so it found its way through the ceiling. And we had an employee at the time that thankfully had gone into work early, about 7 o'clock, and I got a telephone call that water was coming in one of the offices. Yeah. And so we went in and realized that the roof had a leak, and it was coming into one of the offices. And so we started pulling equipment out, and we were pulling it into different areas of the office, and then one by one, the water would come into it moved from east to west into the next office, and then into the kitchen, and then into the next office, and the next one, and then into the lobby. By that time, we had like a fireman's brigade of people that were in the building at the time, helping us get all of our equipment out and into the lobby. And so we had multiple computers and televisions and all of our paperwork and files and all of those things. We pull them all, into the lobby, but we still had clients to serve.
Yeah. What did we do?
Well, we took everything home, and we every bedroom and the kitchen table and the dining room table and then the little bar area, they all became offices. And there was so much damage on Meadowlark that it took months for them to tear out all of the sheetrock and get everything dried out and get the mold taken care of. That it was weird, but we were functioning pretty well as a company, and we were actually saving a lot of money. And so we just kept going, and the invitation had come from Mark Conklin for us to come back to the office and on Meadowlark, and we think we're going to save our money and maybe buy a building. And so that's what we did. We know this great human being. His name's Steve Nakamura. He's a custom home builder, and he's built a lot of the office buildings, and he built schools and custom homes and things. And he had purchased the land and built a couple of buildings on Pinehurst behind now Starbucks and Walgreens. And we toured that building with Westwood Realty. They were our real estate agents at the time, and we looked at this office, 2,000 square feet, beautiful construction, just a very customized office. And we looked around and like, we're kind of outclassed. I mean, this was, it was really a cool office. And Westwood Real Estate, Rod and John there. And Steve, they really made us an offer we really couldn't refuse. And then we moved out of the house and we moved into that office space on Pinehurst.
So we worked there at Pinehurst for a couple years, and then expanded into the suite next to us.
Right. The next year we bought the next suite.
Right. How many employees did we have, and kind of what were we doing at that time?
I think at that time, I think there was 9 of us at the time. When we were fully staffed, there was 9, and we were cranking out television commercials in long format and websites and graphics, and we became a Google partner, and so we were working on online advertising and display advertising, and we were doing it all.
Yeah,
doing it all, and then it's about that time too. I think we were on Meadowlark when we went to the Congo.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've, this television provides an opportunity, I think, to meet a lot of really cool people and do a lot of really cool things. So I've been across the United States and different parts of the world. Mm-hmm. Television takes you a lot of cool places. You get to meet a lot and learn a lot of different things too. So
again, if anybody has questions for Ed or myself, we're be happy to take those at the end of the show. What was it? What year? What decision factors was it to move from Pinehurst? Because now we're in a totally separate location. We've been here on Quantum on this location for
Right.
over a year. So
Right. So when we were on Pinehurst, we were in 4,000 square feet, and then COVID happened, right? And then the shutdown happened,
Yeah.
and people started working from home, and we had an entire 2,000 square foot area that we just weren't even using, and we thought, well, what are we going to do with this space? And so we moved everything from one of the suites and consolidated everything into the Unit 101, and we're operating out of that area because with some people that were working from home, some people had just left, and so we did that for a while, and we leased out the space that we had originally been in years before, and after the shutdown, we started looking ahead and wondering, are we really in the right place to be able to move the company into its next phase, where Kim and I might retire and you could take over the company, and like how were we going to do that? And one of the challenges I think that we had at the time, we had it with when we were working with Rio Rancho Public Schools and doing green screen work there. We were working with Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things. We need studio space, and we would, I think there's a common misperception that the film industry has granted production companies all of this ability to do different things. But in reality, for example, there were two things. There was the shoot that we needed to do for Malloy Dodge for the lifted trucks, where we needed studio space, and we called around. We called some of the larger studios. We need studio space. I'm sorry, no. Everything was no.
Yeah.
Same thing with Finn Wolfhard.
Well, even if they weren't using the studios for actual scenes and filming, they were using them just for storage.
It
was something that I hadn't ever really heard of or experienced.
Right. And so out of necessity, right? Necessity and control.
Yeah.
Because people who come from a news background and like to direct news are also kind of control freaks. But no, I mean, it's just, we can't, when I was taught that you have to find a way, right? In television, you have to find a way to get things done, and we weren't able to get the things done that we needed to do.
Yeah.
So I think that realistically, there were two or three incidents that happened where we needed studio space.
Well, when we were landlocked, we didn't have at that point in the company working at that location. We didn't have additional offices. We didn't have room to,
do different things,
do anything really.
Right.
I mean, we had enough offices for our staff.
Right.
We had a conference room, but we really needed to find something bigger, I think, to be able to expand and continue pushing
yeah. And I don't think that downsizing Pinehurst was a mistake.
No.
I think it was out of necessity that we did that. But once we sort of came up for air after COVID, we thought, we got to do something different. And then I think kind of out on a whim, really, I think Kim just kind of started looking at property, and she said, Eddie, there's this property over on Quantum that looks like it might work for us. It has all kinds of offices, and we drove by the property, and you could look at the property and know that Steve Nakamura built it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's I think this one, and there's another one down on Quantum.
Right.
That just looking at it,
it's a Steve Nakamura building. But so we toured the building, and I think that there had been and it was for sale. There was a company that was here, and then there was somebody that was going to buy it. And I think that they couldn't get their finances together. They had investors and these types of things, and they couldn't get it together, and so that left the opportunity for us to come in here. We made an offer, and with some negotiation, I guess you could call that. We took over the building, and we had gone to California
Yeah.
during the process of purchasing the building, and when we got back, several of us had COVID, and we actually signed the paperwork. Kim and I signed the paperwork to own the building in our cars because we couldn't go into the title company to sign the paperwork, and so we drove separate vehicles because I didn't have COVID, but Kim did.
Yeah.
I got at that.
So we went from 2,000 square feet
to 6,000
square feet.
Right.
And 4,000 square feet of that is office spaces.
It's office space and a 2,000 square foot studio. But this studio space was an absolute wreck. Right. So the previous tenants had all kinds of ventilation.
They were a lab.
It was a lab, and it wasn't clean. It was not a clean lab.
No, the floors were
filthy. Yeah. There were vents everywhere.
Countertops throughout
everywhere. The paint was just nasty. And but we had a vision, right? I mean, you and I looked at it and went, we can make a studio out of it.
We can paint some walls.
Paint some walls. So it's just going to take paint.
Yeah.
But it was a journey.
So
right?
we have this 2,000 square foot studio now. We're this was 2013 that we 2023 that we purchased.
Yeah, you lost a decade in there.
We purchased we purchased the building.
Purchased the building, right?
Ad House advertising was going strong. Edit
Right.
House was going strong.
Right.
Producing commercials,
Right.
documentaries to do that.
Right.
Doing websites.
So then we created
online advertising.
Edit House Studios.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we created that for a very good reason. And I think a lot of that was driven from our experience in trying to find studio space,
right?
As say like not a feature film production, right? So
right. So I think that its primary purpose is to serve our needs.
Mm-hmm.
We have rented it.
We use it all the time.
Yeah, we do.
Great.
But we have rented it out to some folks that have shot movie scenes here.
Mm-hmm.
One of our I think it was a great honor for me and I'm sure for you as well that we worked with Dr. Harrison Schmidt, who was on Apollo 17, and we produced his worldwide documentary videos for him for basically an entire year.
Yeah.
I got a telephone call from Larry Aarons, who used to be on KKOB, and he said, "Hey, got a friend that might want to do some documentary work, and I don't know if you want to work with him or not." But so we were introduced to Jack, and produced a lot of his videos, and you had an experience when Kim and I were camping in
so Ed and Kim had kind of gone out, and they were out camping one day, and this is after we had started working with astronaut Jack Schmidt from Apollo 17. He called the office one day, and he's asking for Ed, and I'm like, well, Ed's not here. How can I help you? Mm-hmm. And he says, well, Fox News wants to do a live cut-in. Can I do it there at the studio? And I'm like, oh, crap. We, at that point, hadn't done live cut-ins.
Right.
So it was brand new. I think it was the day before Fox News wanted to do this. And all of a sudden, we had to throw together a set. We had to get all of the logistics of like the camera equipment, the laptop. We had to make sure that the internet connection was going to be stable. We had to then be communicating with Fox News on how this was going to happen, what time.
We had to figure out how to do an IFB earpiece.
Yeah, we didn't have a little earpiece that the news anchors wear. So we went down to Best Buy and got a little wired earbud that we put in his ear. We now have one of those.
An IFB. Yeah.
But it was insanely stressful at the time, but it was also one of the most memorable things that has ever happened to me. He came in, it was a Friday afternoon. I think they wanted to go live at like 2:25.
That was for Kabuto, right, on Fox Business.
Yeah. So we had everything set up. the laptop was streaming to Fox News. They took it. We went live, and Fox News had astronaut Jack Schmidt live on the air with Neil Cavuto from Edit House Productions in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. And that was one of the coolest things.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And it was almost surreal because nobody was here. I mean, everybody was gone.
Yeah.
So to throw that together in really less than a day,
Yeah.
with no kind of prior knowledge, or it was
Yeah.
definitely an experience.
They call that initiation by fire.
Yeah, I was burning that
Yeah.
day. You should have seen me.
Proud of you. That was
Yeah.
cool. So
we created Edit House Studios, and we're kind of running out of time here. We've been going for almost an hour. We created Edit House Studios with the idea of giving local producers and people who wanted to film their content a space to do that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the larger studios around Albuquerque are hard to get into. If you're an independent filmmaker, if you're
Right.
smaller, if you're not a feature film with $100 million, it's hard to get into those spaces and book time. So we created Edit House Studios to be able to offer that to independents
Right.
who wanted to come in and shoot really whatever they wanted. But we kind of upped the game and said, well, we're also going to offer our equipment. So people
Right.
can now rent our equipment. We have two Sony FX9s. They are
Netflix approved.
they're
Yeah.
Netflix approved.
Not sure
Yeah.
what that means, but
We have two of
it's good.
those that are 4K. We have two FS700 cameras that can also shoot 4K, and then we're able to offer these independent filmmakers all of our grip equipment, all of our sound and lighting, everything that you would really need to make a movie or a show or anything. We offer that to these people.
Right.
So we're offering our equipment, we're offering our studio space, and I think that was at the time when we started Edit House Studios a really big thing to be able to offer our community.
Right, I agree. I think it's a great opportunity for people to come in and like you said, produce what you want.
Yeah.
And it's a good space.
Yeah. So let's get to questions here in just a couple minutes. If anybody has any questions, feel free to just post them on the Edit House Facebook or YouTube channel. We're monitoring, so we'll answer those in just a couple minutes. But Ed, Dad, Papa Bear,
Yeah.
fondest memories, most memorable memories from Edit House. What are you most proud of? What are you most excited about
Wow.
in the past, in the future?
Wow. I wasn't expecting that. I think there's a lot of moments. Sort of working backwards. This is a pretty decent moment. Our first podcast, and you and I talking to each other and talking as adults, and having a great time putting things together. But if you kind of go backwards in time, it probably Jack Schmidt and working on the Apollo projects and going to Houston and Hutchinson to an award ceremony, the Congo project, attaining different firsts with HD, Google partner, those, but probably proudest of being able to work with you.
Aw.
And understanding that you're going to be able to take this over and make it your own and propel it into the future. And then, maybe Mom and I will go on a cruise.
I like
Or
cruises.
two.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, it could be fun.
We have a couple questions and comments. First from Deb Toner.
Hey,
she
Deb, how you
says
doing? Deb's one of our
she,
followers.
Yeah, she says she's loved working with us. We appreciate you, Deb. Vince Ortega has a question. What do you like most about working in the Rio Rancho community?
I think Rio Rancho is really unique. The business community here, they support you. There's a group of us. There are probably 500 of us, I think, that participate in a lot of different aspects of the city. the volunteering for different organizations. I think our political leadership now is very supportive of of our company. The mayor, city council does a great job. City manager Peter Wells, that we've known for 20 years with the city, very supportive. If you need something, if we need something from the water department or planning and zoning, you ask the question and you get the answer right away. And I think that that's really valuable to small businesses. We had some planning and zoning questions, about the studio. Could we be a television studio with the current zoning? And you asked the question of planning and zoning, and a day later we had an answer. We thought we would have to go maybe before planning and zoning with our plan of who we were going to be and what we were going to do, and no, they did a reading of it, and we were in. We got the blessing of the city, and certainly Mayor Hull has been supportive, and always shares our what we're doing, and yeah, I mean, it's just a supportive community.
Yeah, absolutely. And in addition to that, we've loved working with some of the area nonprofits and creating things to help not just the nonprofits, but people in our community.
People in our community, right? I mean, we still host and maintain the Haven House domestic violence website. We've worked with other nonprofits on video projects. There's a wonderful little family that we've worked with for there's a genetic abnormality called Atrix, and we just really kind of fell in love with this family and their struggle, and we put together a video and a website for them, and they've been able to take that video and propel it forward to a worldwide audience for research on this genetic abnormality called Atrix.
Absolutely.
So I mean, it's just yeah, the television industry, when you combine television with a local community, it just absolutely does wonders.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really absolutely does wonders.
I really feel like the reason and the benefit of television or video should be to help people.
It should, and like I don't talk about it very much anymore. But when we came to KRQE, Kim and I had watched a news feed when we were in Roswell about technology that firefighters could use to see through smoke to rescue people, and it was called FireCam. And I think Kim and I looked at each other at the same time and went, "Holy cow, this is perfect for television, to be able to tell the story of technology that could save lives." And so while I was at KRQE, we actually done a test in the Roswell market where we did a live burn of a house, and firefighters used this technology to find, like fake people inside of this burning house, and you could watch the feed, and you could see firefighters on their hands and knees, dragging these, fake people out of this house. And when we were there, we put together a promotional campaign along with WIP, the Waste Isolation Pilot program down in Carlsbad, and a couple other sponsors. And we raised money, and we bought a fire cam for the fire department in Roswell. And so when we came here, we started pitching this to management at KRQE, and got a little pushback from middle management, but upper management thought it was a kind of a cool idea. So I arranged a meeting with 5 fire department captains, and we got them all together. We met in downtown Albuquerque, I think, and pitched this idea. And they heard about it, and they thought, well, and they said, well, what's in it for you? I'm like, well, nothing. This is a marriage of local television and this technology, and
To
and again,
benefit the community.
and it's like it's one of those things where I knew that it would work if I could get these partners together. And so Kim, when she was in the sales department, and the sales staff, they started looking for sponsors, and we got the news department, and Art Barron was God rest his soul, great guy. He was the news anchor, the point person, and we went and we shot promos, and we had the demo cameras and but then we did this entire promotional campaign, and then we did like this little mini telethon, and they demoed. I have the tape somewhere. They demoed the cameras. We had the cameras hooked up in the newsroom, and actually shut the lights off in the newsroom, and you could see the people on the news set with these cameras. Do you remember I brought the fire cam home at one point and we played hide and go seek?
No, I don't remember that. That sounds like a blast.
I could see your footprints because you left a heat signature behind.
Oh wow.
Anyway,
it's all about benefiting the community. I mean, video really should be that.
That's its highest and best use. We talk about highest and best use in terms from a management standpoint, in terms of what of people, and what's the highest and best use of this person and who they are. But television also has a highest and best use, and its highest and best use is its involvement in the community. Anyway, long story short, the FireCam project was a huge success, and we raised $250,000, I think, through that effort, and we bought fire cams for every fire department that participated, and Rio Rancho was the first to use it. They went to a home where the homeowner could smell smoke, and there's a term called extension, where there can be flames behind sheetrock, and there was a switch or something that had shorted out, and so there was a fire behind a light switch, and they used the camera, which it's infrared, but that's not really the term. They could see the heat behind the wall. They opened a little place in the wall, they put out the fire, and they saved that person's home, because otherwise they wouldn't have been able to find it, and the home may have burned down. And so all of the fire departments had it. Once the fire departments had the fire cam, the legislature then understood the value, and fire cams went on every single fire department in the state. That's the power of television.
That's incredible. Well, we really appreciate learning the history of Edit House Productions, Ad House Advertising, Edit House Studios. Thank you so much for being on our show. There's lots more topics to be able to dig deep in and learn more about what we do here at Edit House Productions. We're excited for this podcast to see where it goes. We're going to continue to have amazing guests on, like Mr. Smith here. We're excited for this. So thank you so much for watching our first episode of Lights, Camera, Clicks, here produced by Edit House Productions. Thank you so much, and you guys have a fantastic day.